Hello, everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Terry Mixon. Joining me, Paul E. Cooley, fresh from Oahu. Welcome back, Paul.
Fresh from Oahu. I didn't get a tan, at least not that I know of.
You're like a pasty white guy. If you even look out the window, you're going to get a tan.
Man, I was using SPF 70. All right. No matter the first day we went out there, which was, we spent so much time in the damn trolley. If you don't know about this, my in-laws celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and they brought all their children and dependents to Hawaii on Oahu, and we had basically 4 days of just insanity. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm rested except for the fact I haven't had enough sleep, but that doesn't surprise anybody.
This is like normal for you.
Oh, this was worse. This is worse. Because I was hanging out with her younger brothers who,
shenanigans occurred. I see.
Lots of shenanigans. We had to check out the Mai Tai bar, which we were told had the best Mai Tais, and that did not end well. So, there was a bit of drinking at night.
I see.
Just a little bit. But I managed to get 3,000 words done, so that was cool.
That's very productive.
Yeah, it wasn't even on Signal Decay either, which is just like, God damn it, Paul, will you please decide what novel you're writing? But I just read a work in progress, and I was like, what was this again? What is this again? And I went through it and went, oh, wait a minute. Hey, I want to know what the next thing happens is. Oh, I want to know what the next thing happens is. Oh, I want to know where that next thing happens is. I don't know what the hell's going on yet. I have a vague idea, but it's fun just to enter there because it's silly. The character has a real attitude. He didn't pay for the AI in his suit. So the upgraded AI that has personality. So basically what he did is he went in there and programmed this monotone AI who has no inflection in her voice, but is extremely sarcastic. So there's lots of pre-programmed things. So yeah, pretty much. And of course it's obnoxious. And everybody else is like, what the hell's wrong with you? It's one of his quirks. And he plays jokes on his boss because his boss is a dick and things like that. And it's fun. I'm having fun with it. And it's like, it's less serious. It's going to get serious soon, I think. But I'm having fun just going crazy with the character in that particular universe because it's so different from the one I've been working with.
Sometimes you need a palate cleanser.
Yeah, and I think that's essentially what this is. That and there's something about Signal Decay where I've hit... I don't know how to describe this one thing. We will have to talk about that after the show.
Okay.
That notwithstanding, I had a really good trip. I will feel a hell of a lot better tomorrow, but it was great to spend time. I got in the ocean for the first time in like a decade. And
you weren't eaten by a shark.
I was not eaten by a shark. I had a really good time. It was fantastic to see everything. And man, if you get a chance to, that was my second time in Hawaii. If you get a chance to go, you really should at some point. Go to Oahu, check everything else out, and then go to Kauai to see just how damn beautiful that area can possibly be.
I totally would love to do that. One of these days.
Just don't get blown up by the volcanoes that are still going. Just don't let that happen.
I'm surprised that. Did you have any concerns about the coronavirus while you were over there?
I figure at this point, you need to act like you're going to get it and just assume you're going to get it. I think you practice all the hygienic things. We washed our hands a lot, obviously. Read up on stuff where, it can survive up to 6 to 12 hours on metal. It doesn't like heat, doesn't like cold, or likes cold. It doesn't like heat. Sorry. So all the things about drinking warmer beverages as opposed to water and never using ice. It's just really weird stuff that they also had for SARS out there. I don't know how effective any of that crap is. I don't know.
I've heard that doing good hand washing, which for those folks watching on the video, it's not just washing your hands. It's doing the whole thing like this with getting your things and then doing your fingers, your tips of your fingers, because your tips of your fingers are what you're touching your face with. And that's where you're going to get it. So if you are washing your hands well and often, it'll cut your chance of catching it in half, is what I've heard.
It probably will, but I just assume that like we were talking about in the pre-show, I just assume that somebody who is sick is going to end up preparing my food, or handing me something at a store, or money, cash. Cash is probably the most pernicious possible viral vector you can imagine. So every time we used cash, I was very aware that I needed to get to a hand sanitizer station, which were
Make sure
everywhere.
it's one that's got 60% or more of alcohol, or maybe it was 70%, 60 or 70%.
It's more than 60, because now all the alcohol companies are trying to make sure that their patrons understand you cannot use their alcohol for hand sanitizer.
What?
Yes, we have
Can't use
reached
the
that level.
Bacardi,
We have reached that level. Well, that's 40% alcohol.
Oh,
Know your alcohols, damn it. Know your
I don't know
alcohols.
these things. Vodka,
Well, some of the whiskeys I drank.
Everclear.
Yeah, exactly. You can use Everclear. That's really good. Yeah.
Isopropyl alcohol. That'll work.
That's pretty much what I drank when I tried this Hawaiian rum that was just god awful.
I'm pretty sure that you shouldn't be drinking isopropyl alcohol.
That's what it smelled like. And it tasted like somebody poured teriyaki coffee and what was the other goddamn thing? Oh, soy sauce all together and made a rum out of it.
That sounds delicious.
Oh my God. No. I took one sip and was like, yep, that sucks. My brothers-in-law were like, no, man, you got to finish the bottle. Fuck you. I'm too old to even give a shit about these kind of games. You're a pussy. A 49-year-old pussy who wants to keep his sanity intact, and I don't do shit unless I enjoy it. Fuck off. And that was that. So there you go.
Well, there you are.
What have you been up to?
I was hoping to have been finished with my redlining and actually well on my way to doing the final read-through of Victory on Terra. But I had to spend the last week and a half helping move my stepson out of the house. It is now done.
Yay.
But it totally wrecked my schedule otherwise.
That about figures.
But now I've got a nice big empty room at the other end of the house that I can use for whatever purpose I want. I wonder what I might do. Get all this crap out of my office, maybe?
Yeah, but see, here's the bad part. If you get all that crap out of your office, where the hell are the cats going to go?
Oh, cat trees. We will have cat trees.
Oh, there will be monkey trees everywhere. There are like 16 cats in Terry's room just meow, 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 having conversations.
Wouldn't that be an awesome podcast? Terry and his 16 cats.
You could stream that shit. People would actually tune in on Twitch to watch that. That's how sad the world is getting. Which, by the way, since we were talking about COVID, they're predicting that ebooks are going to soar, ebook sales, as opposed to paperbacks.
Here's hoping.
Because
remember,
of the
folks, if you want to reduce your chance of catching COVID-19, read Terry Mixon's Empire of Bones saga.
That's right. You will catch no viruses from that. No enjoyment either, but definitely no viruses.
Oh, that's rough.
That's rough. Oh, yeah, that was a dick. So, yeah. The thing is, you and I are both remote employees already, so to speak.
Yeah, we already have reduced most of our getting along with other people.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll keep, my wife has a compromised immune system, so I'm trying to keep her from getting infected because I kind of like to keep her around. Mine's
pretty screwed up too. So yeah, my lungs especially. So there we go. Anyway, those of you out there, please take care. Please, just kind of don't panic, but Christ, use some common sense.
Yeah. So as far as what I've got going on now, I've got 9 chapters still printed out that I need to redline. It'll probably take me 2 more days to get those done, a day to enter them, and then a week to go ahead and do the final read through. So at this point, I'm hoping to get it done by the 20th or thereabouts, get it off to where it needs to be, and get on to Imperial Marines Book 1.
Okay, cool.
I've got 3 chapters written, but I've already, rearranged them like little pieces in my head going, yeah, that's not the right opening scene. I need to change this. So I need to rearrange and shuffle them around.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
But I am ready. I've been involved with this damn novel project for so long that I am ready for the next one.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, let me bitch about ACX right now. ACX is still behind in their audio approval from Christmas, the Christmas holidays.
Oh, goody.
I submitted Ruinterra, February 3rd. It's still not approved. It's not gone through the audio review process.
Have you bitched at them
I
about
have.
it?
They said because they are still so far behind that their new, I'm not sure if it's permanent or not, but new time frame is 30 business days.
Fuck that and fuck you. No.
30 business days.
No, fuck you. That's ridiculous.
So
That is
I sent them an
ridiculous.
email back going, so is this the new now, the new normal, or is this just because you didn't hire enough people?
They didn't hire enough people, and apparently in the articles I looked at, they actually encourage a high turnover rate. So
They
when you're a
need to
dipshit,
automate this. They need to automate the process of whatever they're doing in the audio review. If a human being can do it for the audio, looking at audio levels, I'm pretty darn sure that a computer program could do it too.
I'm pretty sure they have as much money as they need to do this shit. They just do not want to do it.
It's an Amazon company.
Yeah, dicks. They're assholes. They're pieces of shit.
Well, I'm not going
There
to
you
go
go.
that far, but I'm annoyed. So I went ahead and posted on Facebook today. I said, whoever can guess the closest to the date and time that the approval notice comes in for this book, I'll go ahead and redshirt them. So now people are busy guessing when it's going to happen, when I'm going to get the note.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Anyway.
why not make it fun? Why not make it fun? It's annoying. So if I can make it fun for somebody, then hey, that's what I'll do.
The corporate overlords. Anyway, what are we doing here? This is called a bonus episode. What the hell does the bonus episode mean?
Well, the bonus episode is so that the interview we're doing today, which we need to go ahead and get out in a timely fashion, won't completely upset the apple cart of all the other episodes that you have in the queue.
Oh, thank you so much for not completely screwing me over. I appreciate it. Now, with that said, what the hell are we doing here?
Today, we are going to interview Chris Fox, author of the Magitech Chronicles, who is in the process of running a Kickstarter to do the final version of the RPG role-playing game set in his universe, which I think is an awesome sort of thing. And the idea of doing so for myself kind of terrifies me. And I'm not sure that I would ever go that route, but let's go ahead and talk to him and see what's going on with him. And joining us today is author Chris Fox. Chris, welcome to the Dead Robot Society. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
It's a real pleasure having you on. I've been meaning to have you on since we met in Napa last April, but I'm the world's worst scheduler.
I can relate to that, especially now that I'm also a parent.
I'm not going to say a damned word about your scheduling.
Will you disagree with me? Because if you disagree with me, that's not serving your purposes.
I absolutely do not disagree with the assessment. I just wanted to hear you admit it on air.
I totally admit it. I am a terrible scheduler.
All right, enough about you. Tell us about you, Chris.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris, and what it is that you write.
I write primarily science fiction and fantasy. My current favorite series is the Magitech Chronicles, which I describe as epic space fantasy. So think dragons tearing apart starships and gods blowing up planets and, mages meeting technology. You've got cyberware. You've got, all flavors of magic, and there are gods galore. So it's a very wide setting. But I also write military science fiction. I have more post-apocalyptic fiction. So lots of flavors I've written over the years. I've been full-time at this for quite a number of years, and I think I started in 2014. Wow, so it's been 6 years now?
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that you've got a big audience and you're very popular, and it just makes me mildly jealous because I'm not quite that popular yet. But hey, something to aspire to. So the reason that I asked you to come on is you just started a Kickstarter because you are funding the RPG set in your universe. And when we were in Napa, you were doing a play test of that as well there. So you've been working on this a while.
Years. Yeah, years. Many, 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 many years.
Oh, come on. It's got to be easy to write an RPG. It's got to be simple.
I started writing this when I was 18. That was when I decided, okay, I'm going to make my own role-playing game. I am 43, so it took me 25 years to finish this. And if you just look at the serious hard work from when I sat down and said, okay, I'm really going to do this, it still took me almost 3 years.
It's such an intimidating prospect trying to convert something that you've created in your head and make it into an RPG setting that other people can use. I've been a gamer for almost 40 years in one flavor or another, and I'm sitting back going, wow, I don't know if I would have the cojones to even try something like that.
Well, at least today you can steal rules.
I don't think he's stealing rules. I believe he's making his own homebrew system.
I'm sure. Are you crazy enough to do that?
Well, I did make my own homebrew system, but the thing about being a gamer and having played as many systems as we have is you can always point to something else and say, oh, they did it in that system first.
That's what I'm saying. Is basically you have all of that info available, plus there's all that stuff that's in the public domain that's been designed. At least you can, use the rules or whatever else, or steal whatever from you want. So from that standpoint, it's a little bit better, but still, my God.
Can you really actually do that? I know this is getting off onto a segue, but you got to be careful about violating somebody else's license in that.
No.
You cannot copyright a system. This is where the open gaming license with Dungeons and Dragons came from. You can't copyright a system, which means anybody can copy the basics. So this is why Palladium could get away with basically using the same stat block that D&D had. Right. So Palladium basically ripped off D&D whole cloth. I love Palladium. Sorry, Palladium. But sorry, Kevin. But they took a lot of the systems almost whole cloth and like imported them in and made their own game. And that's why so many systems since then have done so. But you can't use intellectual property. So if something is wired into the setting or is very specific to the game world, and you try taking that, you get nailed.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of different systems over the years. D&D. I started with the Blue Basic book way back in the day. I've played Rollmaster. I've played Hero System. I've played literally everything under the sun that I could get my hands on over the years. How, as a creator, it was like a smorgasbord trying to figure out what you would want to apply to your own homebrew system. How do you even start a process like that?
I'm so glad you asked. So you try a lot of things badly, and that's the answer for many years, where you just try something, you're like, well, that didn't work, and here's why, and that didn't work, and here's why, and you fail upwards. So what I did is I started with Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, and I used what they call the E6 rules, where it caps your level at 6. You can't go any higher than 6th level. And the idea was I didn't want mages to have spells that will allow them to create planes of reality like you can do in D&D. It breaks the setting and it takes away the internal cohesion. And I kind of went from there, and I found a bunch of limitations. And eventually what I realized was the D20 is the problem. I've had so many people walk away from the table and not come back because you're like, I'm going to play Lego Lost. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1. And at the end of a session, what they had is 3 hours of just failing, and they would feel miserable. And so I wanted to go on a quest for a system that supports the narrative. So we're all about the story that we're playing, and it doesn't really get in the way, but it lets you feel like big damned heroes. So you succeed at the things that you're supposed to be really good at, and you've got a chance at the stuff you're kind of mediocre at, unless somebody's really good that you're fighting. And it feels good to play in a system like that. And that's what I was trying to build. So I started with that in mind. How can I make it simple, but also support a world in a coherent, consistent way?
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was running things constantly back in the 80s and 90s, that the best games were the ones where we'd play within the rule system. And as the game master, I would promptly ignore anything that didn't serve gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that made the game fun was something to be searched after. And if it was something that was getting in the way, I'd ignore whatever outcome it was and do whatever served the story and the players better.
Right, but I would argue that's you obfuscating the flaws in a system that don't need to exist.
It's totally what I was doing.
But those flaws don't have to exist. Like, there's no reason someone should ever have a chance to fail climbing a tree. You're like, I've got an 18 dex, and I'm a 7th level ranger. There shouldn't be a roll involved. There's not a one where Legolas is just and just biffs it and face plants.
Yeah, that happened in the outtakes. You never see that for real. You didn't see him accidentally slaughter another hobbit. He never did that. That never happened.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. That arrow just
feathers like 3 extra hobbits.
But at the same time, you do have to use some sanity, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if even though a character's got some ridiculous amount of strength, they still need to roll to turn over a car or throw a boulder or something. Mm-hmm. I would think.
And the trick is making the system so that it recognizes and rewards those tasks, where if you're trying to do something hard, you have to be good at it. And if you are good at it, then you can flip that car over if you're, let's say, a superpowered person. Whereas if you're not superpowered, maybe you even got a chance to flip that car, but you better roll really, really well.
Right.
That totally makes sense to me. Totally makes sense to me.
It's just really
I know that
interesting.
there's a number of game systems that use inherent bonuses depending on your skill, so that it basically means it's impossible to fail for relatively normal tasks.
Right,
and that's they kind also of use multiple die 6s as opposed to die 20s too.
And I'm using the same fistful of dice system, where it's your skill plus your attribute in d6s. Successes are 5s and 6s. However, everyone gets something called a mastery, and that's a skill that you're choosing where you succeed on a 4, 5, or a 6. You're much better at that thing.
Your specialization.
Effectively. Some paths, which is the equivalent of a class, will also award more of those.
Okay. How does that work with imagining your fiction in doing that? Did that require special rules that you're basically stealing from your fiction itself? Like you were talking about, this is Magitech. Is that what you call it? Magitech or Magitech?
Magitech.
Magitech, okay. With Magitech, you mentioned space dragons smashing things. Did you have to come up with new rules to support that kind of stuff?
Yeah, but that part was way easier than I thought it would be. And part of it is being able to look at games like Rifts, where you had dragons, fighting starships. So I think it might have been the first place I ever saw that. I looked at the rules, and for space combat, all I needed to add really was velocity. So we have levels of speed. So if you're a ship or a dragon, generally you have 3 speed increments, and you're not choosing a speed to go. You're going whatever your maximum speed is. So if I'm in increment 1 and my speed is 12, I'm going 12. If I push it to increment 2, it's 24 and then 36. Beyond that single change, most of space combat functions the same way as 2D combat.
Okay.
There's a lot of moving parts when doing a role-playing game, not even talking just the game mechanics. It's taken you years to get it. You say you started the process when you were 18 and have been toying with it. What were the big challenges at getting away from the beginning part where you're like, I want to do this great, huge thing, but I feel intimidated? How did you work your way through those things? What were the big obstacles?
The biggest obstacle lasted over a decade, and that was just trying to make a system for everything, to be able to numerically explain anything that might ever occur. So in the same way that a mathematician and or a physicist will try to proof their way to understanding reality, like all of reality, I was doing that with the rules. And what I realized is, when you sit down at a table with 4 or 5 players, most of them don't care at all about the rules. They just want to have a good time. Some of them might be, the simulationists, the ones that are trying to win a scenario, and so they do care about the rules, but they care about them for different reasons than you. And I just wanted a system that was simple enough to understand. And so I cut away all the fat, and I got down to what is the simplest system I can make that still serves every major purpose. And that was really challenging, to make it both simple but flexible.
I know a lot of games. I support a number of role-playing games on Kickstarter, which it's really weird because I don't actively play anymore. So it's like my hobby is to buy role-playing games to read
to put on our shelf.
Put on our shelf and go, ooh, that's so cool. But a lot of them seem to be using 5e D&D rules for everything.
But the reason for that is clear, and it's more clear than it's ever been at any point in our industry. When you have things like Critical Role that are shaping culture, they're all directing people at Dungeons & Dragons. And if we look back over time, people like us are in the minority. Most gamers found a version of Dungeons & Dragons, and that's what they played. And maybe they upgraded. So if they played, 2nd edition, when 3rd edition came out, maybe they upgraded, but then they stop there and they don't go any further. So people want a common system they can play and understand. That's always going to be Dungeons & Dragons. And 5e is the vanilla of our industry. And people who are willing to delve into weird one-off systems and odd universes like we are seem to be in the minority.
I think there's a big reason for that. That was one of the problems, right? It's like you go to a game and they're running GURPS. I've never played GURPS before. I have to relearn everything that I learned from Top Secret rules or D&D rules or Gamma World or whatever, because every time you just started in there, it was like I had to relearn how all this shit worked.
And it's so annoying as hell.
Yeah, because you have to actually spend time trying to understand all that crap instead of getting into the game, which is the whole reason you're there. So
Sometimes, you get into the rules. I remember when I was playing Champions, this was before they actually had a computer program to design the system. I built a spreadsheet that I could change stats, and it would change how much a skill cost, and it had all
You
the
would have been a
things built.
hero in my gaming group in 1994. A hero.
I may still have it lurking somewhere in a hard drive somewhere, but I can't count how many hours going through that and making that spreadsheet, because I just got into the process of building the thing to make my characters the way that I wanted to.
That's how I learned programming.
yeah, that is how I learned programming. Pretty much.
I did the same sort of thing for Traveler when I decided to use their trade rules to say, okay, I've got the star map. Computer, tell me where the major trade routes are. So just the whole process attracted me to that. Never came of anything. Never actually got useful for anything, but it was fun while it lasted.
Well, and that was why we were doing this stuff. I think it was just raw passion, and I don't know. All the friends we had back then seemed to be into it for no other reason than we were having a blast.
What is your favorite game that you've played?
Favorite game that I've played? Probably Shadowrun. Like, I jump all over the place, but the connection between Shadowrun and Earth Dawn was so rich and so amazing and so similar to the real world that it just pulled me in. And they had these great novels like Burning Bright by Tom Dowd, or 2XS, I can't remember the name of the author, Nigel Finley, I want to say. But these were gaming novels, so I was used to picking up, like, a Dragonlance novel or a Forgotten Realms novel, and generally they were okay, but they weren't earth-shattering. Shadowrun ones were. I read a bunch of them that were just amazing, and the whole setting, has just really pulled me in. So if I had to pick a favorite outside of my own homebrewed worlds, I would say Shadowrun.
When I was in the Army back in the 80s, the guy that worked at the game shop ran a private game for the people that he liked. And we used the 1920s version of the Heroes rules to play Call of Cthulhu, basically.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And it was crazy. He was a reformed Satanist, and he was a spooky man when he chose to be. I'm talking like skin crawling up, your hair standing up on the back of your neck. Like, okay, that was fun.
And for those who haven't played the game, like, sanity is a score that you have, and it goes down over time. So you're going to go insane if you keep running into things in that game.
That's right. That spell that's going to really help you out. Yeah, not for the long haul, buddy.
Yeah, suddenly you're critical. You have to, okay, there's no way you can score a critical. And pretty soon there's no way you can even score a roll to do anything. Or you lose control of your character because they've gone completely batshit nuts. And then the DM can do all the horrible things to your character they want.
Or just kill the rest of the party.
Or just slay the rest of the party and leave the mental guy just, the guy going completely insane, surrounded by monsters. The end. I need to write that story, thanks.
I've got this couple of bookshelves that are just filled with various gaming supplements and game worlds that I've played in, and they all bring back such strong memories for me. And you're right, it's a hodgepodge. I remember playing Bushido and just getting off on Bushido because it was so radically different than everything else that I'd ever done. There's just so many different systems that
Amber Diceless Role Playing. Remember that one?
Diceless Role Playing?
Amber Diceless Role Playing was based on the 9 Princes of Amber. Roger Zelazny.
I never played it, but I did see it.
It was weird. I only played like one session, but there were no dice involved, which felt really odd. And it was more of a shared narrative experience than anything else. Like, everybody had to kind of agree in a way that I like having dice. I like having that probability, and this didn't.
What about you, Paul?
What about me?
We're out here geeking you, so why don't you go ahead and tell us about your gaming history?
Oh God, I think I started playing D&D when I was like 10, maybe 10 or 11, and did that for a few years. But people just kind of like slowly got away from it and moved off, and pretty soon had no one to play with. And plus, I was busy with band and everything else and writing my own shit, so eventually just kind of went away. But Traveler, Top Secrets, Boot Hill, hearing a lot of TSR in here. The D&D, obviously. What else was in there? Played some Gamma World. And what was that other
So
thing?
we're talking early 1980s here is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you're talking the early 1980s. It did do some of the Star Wars RPG stuff in college. And
Any
also,
TMNT or riffs?
no, but Werewolf Apocalypse and Masquerade.
I got huge into both of those. I love the White Wolf systems.
Yeah, they
There
were
was
awesome.
there was a post-apocalyptic one that I played that I'm trying to remember the name of, but people went to sleep and they were supposed to wake up in the far future, but they started waking up randomly and there was no support. They had military equipment, they had some skills, but the world had crashed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm trying to remember now. The only module I remember the name of is Prime Base. So I'm going to have to look it up and see which one that was. Maybe it was Twilight 2000. No, it wasn't Twilight 2000, although I played Twilight 2000.
It wasn't Paranoia, was it?
No, but I love Paranoia because the computer is your friend.
What kind of game is that where the computer's your friend? Come on.
It's a paranoid computer. You get 6 clones and you role play it trying to stay alive, knowing that you're going to get lasered down, buddy.
When you're actively trying to kill the rest of your party, and everybody has 6 clones.
Really
so you're trying to prove that they're communists so that the computer will like tell you to kill them, or that they're a mutant. And it's just a really fun game.
I went through one game session where I almost survived the entire game. It was a banner moment. I think I just about got everybody else killed before I finally made a mistake and got myself waxed.
Okay, so when you said the computer is your friend, you were being facetious?
That's what the computer says. It's like the whole 1984, the computer is your friend.
Yeah, the computer is your friend. Report to this terminal for termination.
Love it. Love it.
Exactly so.
Wow. Gee, I would never write a story like that. That would never happen. As he opens up his notebook. Yeah, remember that idea? Thankfully, I'll be editing this later so I can take notes. I think the gaming
project.
Morrow Project. I think they made that into a video game.
I don't know about that, but I looked it up. It was the Morrow Project. Was the whole go to sleep and wake up in the future and civilizations crash just like you thought it would, but yeah, your organization hasn't woken up. It's just you.
So it's like Fallout, kind of.
Yeah, you know what it also sounds like is it sounds like the basis for one of those God, what do you call them? One of the games where you're supposed to be the last one alive. I can't remember. They're all popular, Fortnite and everything. Battle Royale. There we go. This almost sounds like it could be a Battle Royale game.
Yeah. I know that role-playing in general has helped me a lot as a writer. It's fueled a lot of my creativity.
We have a huge unfair advantage because we get to see in real time when we do stupid stuff. So like if you're an author and you're like, I write this story, it's the best story ever, and it's actually crap, which all of our first stories usually are, you don't know until you get readers. But with players, you can see in real time on their face when you do something dumb.
Or they walk away and scream at you, or
make excuses why they don't want to be at the next session.
Exactly, because they're still really pissed about what you did to their character. Yeah, it is a different conceit, but at the same time, it is that was a lot of the basis for character dialogue. That was a lot of basis for character expressions. Because if you had people who really got serious into it, they had quirks that they would bring to their character. And you remember those kinds of things. And if you're a player, not just a game master, but a player, and if you get into it, you're also doing that where you're responding back to whatever's going on, and you're doing that as the character. What better way could you possibly want to learn how to write a story? Because if you pay attention to those details and really think about them, you can bring that very easily to your fiction.
As a game master and a role player, you get to see the process of taking your story from an initial idea and running it through the increments to see what happens, because no plan actually survives the players that are going to play it. Because you're going to go ahead and have it figured out where they're going to go, and they're going to insist on talking to the tavern keeper and going off and doing God only knows what, because that's what they think is important. That's what they think is fun.
There's this main quest over here, guys.
So we ran the Magitech Chronicles playtest in Vegas, and this happened. They went off the rails almost immediately. In fact, they did it in Napa too. But in Vegas, the world is coming apart literally. It's disintegrating. It's past what's called the Roche point. It's tumbling too close to the sun, and so now the planet is disintegrating, and they have to get off. And so they need to make it to the spaceport, and they're going through a city with a lot of other people that are trying to make it there, and only so many can make it off. And so people are killing each other on the way. Well, one of them asked me, well, wouldn't there be like an ancient sewer system under the city? and I didn't have a reason to say no. I'm like, shit, you've got me.
Yeah, that's how did
That's fine.
You're fine.
We say those kind of words. Rock on.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what else to do except go with it because it was such a good question. Like, of course, there would be a sewer system that they'd be able to use. And so on the fly, I, as a game master, had to role play out that scenario. And I think that skill is what it gives us. We're not beholden to an outline in the same way. And it really taught me how to branch plots. In fact, sometimes that comes directly from the players, where the players will say something like, ooh, I wonder if this is going to happen. And you're like, yeah, that's way better than what I had planned.
Yeah. Or they move in such a way, that you suddenly realize what you can do to them.
Mm-hmm.
And to either get them back on the main quest or
torment them.
Or do what now?
Torment them.
Yeah, torment them. Because sometimes they give you a great opening for, oh, you guys are going to pay for this one. I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to hurt you real bad.
That type of being able to be nimble like that explains why I'm a pantser, because I'll set up the background of whatever story that I'm going to write. And as I start writing it, I'm going, what's next? Where am I going? Where am I going? And I'm maybe halfway through the novel before I say, oh, there's the ending. It's not what I envisioned at the beginning, but that's where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's where I went.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a journey. And, RPGs really give you that. I mean, people, even on the computers, right? They play the solo RPG games. It's all about leveling up your character. It's about doing these side quests. It's about just basically having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not enjoying it, why the hell are you playing it? That's really what it comes down to. It's kind of like a book, all right, you got 30 pages in, you're not really enjoying it. Well,
the difference, though, I would argue with a book is that there's different takeaways. So some people play narratively, where they want to play a story and be in the head of their character. And some people, as we know, are simulationists, and they want to win combats. They want to gamify things. They want to have the highest armor class and the most hit points, and they want to win in combat. And those combat scenarios get to a point where they're not even their character anymore. They're just moving miniatures on a map. And having those two types of players in the same game, they're both playing the way they want to play, but their styles are going to grate on each other. Like, I'm sure we've all been in groups where those two types of players are mixed, and it doesn't usually end well.
I'm more interested in treasure than I am moving on to the next thing.
I've seen a lot of that, but sometimes you can get players that are different that will take the other type into account, and they'll say, okay, well, I'm doing this for this. Let me accommodate you, other type of player, in helping you do this, and then you can help me do my thing.
Those are great groups.
And those are
you mean like the way a group of people who are trying to accomplish the same task should actually do?
Well, I don't know about whether they should do it, but I've seen people that are wanting to tank their way through these things will go out of their way to do the narrative things, knowing that the people that are doing the narrative will then back them up in the fighting, and then play the style of game they want to. It's not like it's an alternating style of gaming, but
it's a rising tide
scene,
style,
and then the other one will get their scene.
Right.
That's how that works.
That's very fiction, though. I mean, we do that all the time, because you switch between characters that are combat people versus the people that may be strategists or support, rather than if I put it in Rainbow Six Siege terminology, you've got your support players, and then you've got your people who are either going after and trying to flank the opponent, or basically trying to bust into whatever it is. And then the people behind are there to provide support. And if you're thinking about combat, that's two different styles of play for two different styles of character.
I think that's an advantage that game masters have. Another one where you've probably had to accommodate all different types of players over the years, and you can sort of channel those players because you know what they value. So you can craft scenes where you're doing the amazing combat with the great tactics, and then 3 chapters later, you have this really poignant emotional scene between these two characters that's fulfilling a character arc that's been building for half the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the same goes for the RPG, right? It's the same kind of thing. You're basically moving from scene to scene, and then basically have to decide what's going to happen at the next moment. Just like
some of my best memories of gaming were with close friends, just doing an intimate game with just a couple of people there doing it. I remember playing Top Secret with a close friend and his brother, and they're spies lurking their way through a border crossing. And just as a normal thing, I have the border guard there standing there and saying, are you here for business or personal reasons? And they hadn't consulted one another about their cover story. So one goes yes, the other one goes no.
Oh,
And
perfect.
then 2 seconds later, they look at each other and then they reverse it. Yes, no. No, yes. And I'm like, perhaps you would like to speak to one another for a few minutes before coming back?
Before perhaps you should tell us which lie you want us to believe first.
That's great.
If you allow yourself to be a little crazy about it, I was doing, it was top secret, but it was using the hero system. So you've got to have, if you're going to have the pluses, you've also got to have these flaws that you're using to get extra points with. And I had my best friend playing a spy, and the flaw that he picked was he wanted to be an ex-pro wrestler that was on the run because he had the belt, and they were trying to get the belt back. You know, something totally ludicrous like
Right.
that. And I have him going through the airport, and he sees somebody furtively going into a place that people aren't supposed to go. So he's following them. He's got his gun out. He's ready. It's dark in there. All of a sudden, he hears somebody scurry along behind him, and he's like, oh, oh, oh. The lights come on. He's in the middle of a boxing ring. Ding, 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 ding. They've ambushed him. It's a match. It's going on. So if you want to be crazy, you could use a game master. You can play to your audience, and I love that.
It was so fun so long ago.
Oh, I think we went down the rabbit hole on that particular one.
Duh.
You are running a Kickstarter now that you are working on finalizing the rule set. It's taken you a long time to get to that point. What kind of rule set did you settle on?
So I ended up with a fistful of dice system. So you're rolling, like, let's say between 5 and 15 d6s. Usually it's going to be closer to 5, and you're counting up those successes. And you only have one roll for both to hit and damage. So it happens very quickly. You roll once, you tally things up, and you figure out how much damage you do. And combat flows off the back of that. You have both magic and technology woven in, and can sort of choose how you're working with them. If you want to only be technology based, and you are a mage killer and you've got a bunch of cybernetics, that's fine. If you want to be a pure mage and not touch technology at all, that's fine. And if you want a blending of the two, where you're wearing spell armor and you have a spell rifle that you can fire a magic through, that's also an option. So the system kind of supports all of that.
Okay. I guess, how did you even know you were close enough to be ready to do the Kickstarter to finalize it? How did you realize, I think I'm ready for prime time? What was the process?
The three things that I needed were enough artwork, enough of the rules actually written and tested, and then enough playtesting experience where I had run enough games where I would theorize, okay, if I do these things, this is how the game is going to go, and this is how people will enjoy the system. And when I got to a point where I could predict, this is how things should go, and then I played the game session and everybody at the end of it was raving about how all those things went, I knew I was onto something. So two of the last big pieces that we added that made a huge shift were the flaw system. You're used to games that have perks and flaws. Our system is no different, but the difference is flaws are something that you are heavily encouraged to role play. When you pick a flaw, you don't want to pick a flaw in name only. You want to pick a flaw that you can actually utilize, because every time you utilize it, the GM can choose to award you a point of luck, and luck is extremely powerful. It's the only way to get it. So if you choose not to take flaws, or to take flaws that aren't really flaws, so you never have them come into play, then you're just going to be denied luck. And so people would take flaws like punchable face or skipped leg day, or, kind of a douche, or some of the flaws that we have in the system.
Kind of a douche.
And they would play those in the right circumstances, and it would make for some hilarious gameplay that people were having really, a lot of fun organically coming into their characters by using a system like that. And I was surprised by how well that worked. The second system we call favor dice. So we award between 1 and 3 dice, depending on your description. So if you give me a great description of what you're trying to do, be it a skill roll or attacking someone, then we'll award you a few extra dice. And people, even though the dice aren't necessarily that powerful, people just liked receiving the extra dice to be directly rewarded for what they had described.
I know that the role-playing the flaws can be a lot of fun. I can see being a douche, role-playing that, just being a jerk in a situation where you know that being a jerk is not going to actually help you out that much, and having the person next to you sit there looking, really? You're doing this now?
And that's exactly how it plays out.
Pretty much. Why are you down there untying my shoelaces? We're in a goddamn firefight!
The combat rules work exactly as I wanted them to. I wanted like Shadowrun levels of lethality where, if you're not careful, you can get killed. And it doesn't have a sliding hit point scale like D&D. So D&D gets comical pretty quickly where the higher level you are, the more you can ignore. You're like, at a certain point, you're all, I just, put on Boots of the Cat and I can, Halo drop from orbit and not take any damage. There's ridiculous situations. If somebody has a crossbow aimed at your chest and you're a 10th level fighter, you're like, go ahead, take a shot. I don't care. And I wanted a system where that wasn't possible. Right. So the most amount of hit points someone can have at the beginning is like 50, and you can't really get that many more past that unless you're going to catalysts that are powering you up.
I remember looking at the critical hit tables in Rollmaster, some of the creative ways that you could get yourself nuked in a hurry if things went really sourly bad for you.
I had that happen. I was in a Rollmaster game. This is back in like 96, I think. And we'd been playing for 9 months at this point. And I had a character that I'd been playing the entire time. He was a wizard, and I was casting a light spell. And for those that haven't played the system, you have to roll percentile dice every time you do anything. And if you roll like a 1% or a 1 to a 5%, you roll down. And so I rolled down like twice, and my character ended up in a coma for 2 years, and the spell was burned out of my mind.
Ouch.
That's off a chart in Rollmaster.
Yeah, those charts were amazingly. You're like, oh.
That doesn't sound fun.
No.
It's not as bad as like Traveler, where you're generating a character and you can get yourself disabled while generating your character.
While generating your character.
Yeah, basically have to put the character aside and start over again.
Yeah, that's bullshit. But I mean, as a game master or whatever else, I think that I wasn't. I write it like I write fiction. I take the rules I want to use that make sense for the game, that makes sense for the scenario that I'm running, and I get to choose how that's going to work. And the players that I would have would basically warn them up front. I'm not going to roll for every damn thing because it's stupid. It takes so much time. It interrupts the narrative, and you guys want to do stuff like fight and discover stuff and run across other characters. You can't do that if you're rolling every 2 seconds just to take 5 steps.
If it's a simple task in the Magitech Chronicles, or if you have 4 times as many dice as you need successes, then you just don't roll. So like if I've got 8 dice and it requires 2 successes, I don't roll. I just do it.
Yeah. See,
talking artwork, one of the most interesting long-term games I was in years and years ago, the game master was a very excellent artist, and he could draw amazing things that really made the stories come to life. How do you go about finding an artist that meets the flavor of what you're trying to do inside your own role-playing game in your own universe?
It is not easy, but thankfully I've done it, 30 some odd times with my books. And so I had a bunch of existing art and contacts with artists. I'd also been doing role-playing artwork back into, I want to say the early 2000s was when I first started buying role-playing artwork, and I've been kind of accumulating it ever since, knowing I wanted to do a role-playing game. It's hit or miss. Like probably 20% of the artwork that you buy is just not usable. Like you get this, it's done, it's finished, it's not going to work, it doesn't fit the theme, it's maybe not quite high enough quality. If you put that in the book, it's going to wreck it. So you can't use all the artwork that you even purchase, and this is from the good artists. It's just a lot of trial and error. And what I found is I've now reached a point where I do a very intensive mock-up that I send over to them. And I don't, have a good way to show you guys what that looks like, but it'll take me an hour or two to craft one of these mock-ups. So I show them exactly where everything needs to be and where the lighting should be. Just because if you don't give them a level of guidance, it's just like rolling the dice on the artwork.
I can totally understand that. My wife does my covers using stock art, so I have certain limitations in what I have on mine. I haven't actually bought other pieces of art to put in there other than what I can license, but I've started having ideas of, I should go ahead and find an artist to go ahead and do like a character study for some of my major characters. And I'm not to the point of doing that yet, but seeing you putting this together, I'm like, oh man, now I need to think about doing that because it's really cool. I really want to do that.
That's the best part, is seeing it all come to life, where you'll describe something you want to see in your universe and they make it. It's amazing.
All it takes is money and time.
Mm-hmm.
So in your Kickstarter, you've got a reward level where somebody can have your gaming system applied to their property. I think if I understood that right.
Exactly. So my thought was there's a bunch of authors I know that are making high 6 and low 7 figures doing this that have properties that would work for a role-playing game, but either don't know or don't care enough that they want to develop their own system. And it's aimed at those people. And I honestly didn't think anybody would purchase one during the Kickstarter, but I wanted to have it available. It's one of those, it doesn't take any time to type the reward, and if nobody purchases it, that's fine. But I would love to get up to 3 other properties. And my goal is I have a YouTube channel called Chris Fox RPs, and we have all the rules for the system there, as well as a bunch of role-playing game videos. I'd like to highlight those partners on that channel and sort of build a community. So that's my goal. I remember the golden age of the open gaming license with Dungeons and Dragons, where they said, go nuts. And so many game designers got excited. And so I would love to see something similar happen.
I think that would be amazing. I know that you had at least one person signing up for that the last time I looked. It's been a bit since I looked. I'm supporting it, but I haven't picked my head in there to see what's going on.
Yeah, still just the one person, but I mean, I was offering what I felt was a fantastic price for that, which is $5,000, and somebody thought it was worth it.
Absolutely.
5K.
Absolutely.
Ow.
So we've covered the role-playing game. We've covered the Kickstarter. Let's circle back around, if you would, and maybe explain your universe in a little bit more detail. We know we've got space dragons, we've got mages. How did you come up with that as an idea for a property write-in?
Wow. Originally, it was conceived as more of a marketing ploy. I always wanted to see some Spelljammer style fiction succeed, but it didn't appear like a market that I thought would work really well. And I figured if I'm going to do something like Spelljammer, I've got to glom it onto military science fiction. I've got to have a universe that is recognizably, kind of Battlestar Galactica-ish. And so I started crafting, and I thought about, okay, if you had a universe where magic existed, but not everybody had it, it'd be a bit like Rifts in that, factions are going to develop based on the resources they have near them. So on Earth, if we have no magic, we're going to be a technological powerhouse. But if you're on a world where you've got fire magic, and fire magic can be used quickly and easily, your whole culture is going to be, reflecting that. And so is all of your mages. That your mages are going to be much more destructive than if you had, like, let's say, a life catalyst. So I've got this magic system, the Circle of Eight, which is sort of like the periodic table of the elements for magic. And different gods have died in different areas and are now resource deposits of that type of magic. And so I just started going around the galaxy like, well, what would be over here? And I would, plot out this battle that happened 100,000 years ago. And, this god died over here and his arm got torn off and flung into this system. And, this god's skull got ripped off and is over here. And the more I kept tinkering, the more ideas just kept coming.
Meow. This is the inevitable cat visiting here. That's the way it happens.
Cats are definitely inevitable.
You got that right, especially on this show.
I love cats.
Come on, Paul. Your turn. I'm monopolizing. I can tell that I'm monopolizing.
Yeah, you are monopolizing. So when these gods get their shit torn off, are they turning into like just rocks kind of floating through space, pieces just
heads
flying out there like asteroids,
grinding their brains out?
Yeah, for most of them, yeah. So you'll actually have somebody, like, if the god is dead and its skull, we have a catalyst called the Skull of Zal. There are demons that live here. In the universe, there are these beings called primals, and no one knows where they come from, that they theorize probably the galactic core, and they're untyped. So think kind of like, a little bit like Gollum. And when they get close to a source of magic, a catalyst, they morph into whatever that god would have found pleasing. So if you're a god of dragons, they're going to become dragons. If you're a god of jinn, they're going to become jinn. If it's ogres, they'll become ogres. And so that catalyst will shape them. Well, the skull of a demon god turns them into tech demons. They're smart demons who make their own weapons, and they've got assault rifles and spell armor, and they vigorously defend the body of their fallen god. So if as an adventurer, you'll fly to a catalyst trying to get magic because it powers not just you up, but also your weapons and armor. So you want to get there, and they don't want you to get there and steal their magic. And the whole adventure that you as a GM are plotting is going to one of these catalysts, like the skull of a dead god, and getting power for your group, and then trying to get away again.
It's an assault and escape, assault and extract.
Mm-hmm. When you get power from the catalyst, do you then keep it, or is it something that decays over time?
It's permanent. It's permanent. So, like, let's say I have life magic, and I go to this void catalyst. Now I have life magic and void magic. And so effectively, this gives me access to a new spell list. If you're looking at it from a D&D perspective, you can now mix and match and do different types of magic you couldn't do before. And so ideally, everybody wants all 8 eventually. So you're flying around trying to get various powers and abilities from these catalysts. And at the same time, your weapons and armor are getting stronger.
I
So
can
it's a
totally
skill
see
tree.
a magical tourism industry.
And it exists. It is written into the
I'm
setting.
being serious, Paul.
There's a group that'll take you to catalysts, and so what they'll do is they'll kill all the tech demons and they'll gun them all down and they'll safely get you up to the catalyst and you can catalyze.
Oh, that's boring.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're rich and you don't want to take any risks, in fact, oftentimes
there's a story right there. Some group that takes them there, and then the group is wiped out, and you have to go rescue the rich person because money.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that as an adventure.
Or the rich person, the entire party dies, and then they're like, "Oh shit, I'm stuck here. My craft is disabled. Without that magic, I'm not getting off the planet."
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to buck up and do it.
Yeah, figure it out, or you're done.
That sounds like a great video game. It sounds like a good book too. I like that.
I've never been much of a video game person, but I could totally see how video games could play into the narrative of stories like this.
Oh yeah.
I've turned down the first 2 that have come to me so far, and I expect we'll get more, because when people see the visuals and the setting, they're like, God, we need to make a video game. But they want to make mobile games, and I'm not interested in mobile games. I was a mobile developer. I'm a PC gamer. I want Baldur's Gate 3. I want Pillars of Eternity 2. I want like an isometric story-driven game where you're role-playing and you're leveling up your characters as you go, and you've got like a little squad of characters going through the story.
Yep.
Even though I haven't seen more than one instance of doing it, I know that virtual reality is becoming a thing. I could see this being an amazing environment to play in a virtual reality setting.
God, I can't wait. And in sometime in the next 5 years, that'll exist.
Sounds very, very interesting. I'm excited to see what comes of all this. So
how many days do you have left in your Kickstarter?
16, I want to say.
You get half a month. You can still go crazy.
Yeah, I've done a little statistical analysis on it. I'm about to hit 17K. I think that like if I push hard and I hit the people that I want to talk to, I might get as high as like 30K by the end, which would be great. I mean, that's double what I thought the initial stretch goal could be.
that's awesome.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we'll
thank
certainly do our part to get the word out as well.
I appreciate that.
It's what friends do.
Speaking of Terry, doesn't he have something for our listeners?
He does. He shared a link to the current beta set of the rules that he's willing to share with the viewers. And so that's going to be in the show notes.
Well, there you go.
So thank you very much for that. I look forward to looking into that and going, ooh, what's going on here?
Yeah, my pleasure. And if people have questions, shoot me an email at chris@chrisfoxwrites.com. Let's talk RPGs.
That could take a while.
That's its own podcast. That's a totally different thing.
So you've started off with where they can send the email. Why don't you go ahead and tell folks where they can find not only your email, but your books, where they can find you out in social media, everything.
Oh, sure
Tell
thing.
them all.
ChrisFoxWrites.com is my main website. If you like the sound of what you're hearing today, you probably want to check out the Magitech Chronicles.com. Or just Google Magitech Chronicles, and on the first page you're going to see our World Anvil page, the audiobooks over on Audible and the books on Amazon.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about it, because this has been a really great conversation.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Folks, if you would like to send us a note and ask about something along these lines, send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find us on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley, because I'm too old for Twitter. That's how that works. You can go to the deadrobotsociety.com, where you can get our audio there, which we have to thank the good folks at podhoster.com for hosting all of our audio. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. And of course, you can support us at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get exclusive content like our pre-shows. If you are a $10 contributor, you get your name read during the episode. Paul, tell us who our $10 supporters are this week.
Our $10 supporters are Andrew Smallwood, Chris Winder, Drew Angry Fiesta Rodan. I'm still waiting for an explanation there, buddy. Isabel Cushy, JD Barker, Nathan Cosby, Rick Shaw, Cheryl Winters, Tony L. Joy, and Veronica Jaguar. Thank you very much, folks.
Patrons, thank you very much for your support. And folks, thank you for tuning in. And we hope we brought you something interesting. If you have the inclination and opportunity, head straight over to Kickstarter. We'll have the link to go to Chris's Kickstarter page. Give him some support. Show him some support because you won't be sorry.
Yeah.
And that's it for the show this week, folks. Thank you very much. And we will see you next week.
Yes, we will.
Bye-bye.
Bye.